My name is Patricia Devine. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a member of the Worship and Music Committee, and I will be your worship associate this morning. And I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. If you are visiting, we welcome you, and if you have questions, you can ask one of the greeters. Today, we acknowledge that we are located in a place that was once the Wampanoag village of Pawtuxet. We strive to follow their example and be faithful stewards of this sacred land. The theme for today's service is Fierce Love and will be presented by our minister, Reverend Arthur Lavoie. Deb Keller-Wood, Director of Spiritual Development, will lead a time for all ages, and our live music is offered by our music director, Emily Browder Melville. Lydia Robertson is providing the technical support. She is our technical wizard. Our service is being filmed and is being broadcast in its entirety on Zoom. Once recorded, the candle sections will be edited out so that we can speak freely and comfortably amongst ourselves. This service, as are all of our services, will be posted on our Facebook page and on YouTube. We also share our services on local public access television. We will not be offering coffee this morning for several reasons. For one, Julia Thomas is with her daughter. She's usually here doing her magic. Also, we imagined that all of you would have a place to go right after service, but you're welcome to stay and visit and make yourselves comfortable. Whomever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, let us walk together this hour.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Arthur Lavoie. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm also delighted to welcome you all this morning. I want to offer a special welcome to any who are watching on Zoom or who will see the service on public access TV some other time, or any of the other platforms where we broadcast. We are thrilled to have everyone, both those present and those watching virtually, as part of our service this morning, and hope that anyone watching online, if you have any questions or would like to talk to me, please check out our website, firstparishplymouth.org, and and you'll find ways to contact me or contact the office for more information about this congregation or Unitarian Universalism. Okay.
The call to worship this morning is by Reverend Jean Javier Duval. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week, or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, whether you have untold stories buried deep inside, or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort, you are beloved, and you are all welcome here.
Our opening hymn is number 91 in the gray hymnal. And do we have any special instructions?
No, but I will just play you the melody so you're one time through so you're familiar, and stand as you are comfortable.
please remain standing. And we're going to have our chalice lit this morning, right? And okay, thanks so much. And join me in the words of the covenant printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
Fierce love. What's that make you think of? Fierce. Yeah. Animals. Guess what? I have some animal stories for you. Animals and love. Ready? Though lionesses have a reputation for being strong, fierce predators, who would do anything to protect their young? It turns out that their maternal instinct can sometimes extend beyond their own cubs. There's a story of a 2-month-old leopard cub that was adopted by a lioness. There's a story of a lioness taking care of 4 antelope babes. Normally, that would have been the lioness's dinner. Whales, the biggest giants of the sea, have adopted other species. There was a group of whales that had a narwhal swimming with them for 18 years. They have also rescued seals, and they have actually gone around a group of seals to protect them from sharks. Dolphins have taken on other calves. Monkeys have taken on marmosets. Orangutans have taken on mice. An orphaned elephant that was not surviving, that had to be brought to a rescue center, ended up growing up and being reacclimated out to the wild, but came back every day to take care of the other orphaned elephants.
Let's see. Back here.
Sorry, the color printer was getting a little funky. Birds, this was interesting. Raptor Rescue Center had to take care of some baby birds, but they had to make sure that those raptor babies did not imprint on them, which is what happens when the babies are fed by their parents. So the people who worked there dressed up as trees to feed the raptors. And they made a fake head that they could feed through. Wow. I love this one. A sheepdog wanted to help the baby lambs and helped more than 15 lambs over her lifetime. This one's good. Now, mothering makes us think of the feminine. My husband is one of the best mothers I know. This is a male dog taking care of possums on his back. I have so many stories here. this one is one of the best. This dog nursed all sorts of different mammal breeds because she lost her own pups and she would accept any babies. And so every time there was a need, she took on new babies. So we're gonna bring the pictures. Oh, yeah.
I read a book at one point, I think it was fiction, but I read a book where there was a wolf pack and one of the cubs was born with a twisted front paw and they were going to just leave him out in the wild because they couldn't really use him. And he was washed downstream and a mother grizzly found him. She had just lost her last cub and a different grizzly had wanted to mate with her and killed her cub to get towards her. And she had just lost her cub and she took in the wolf and they
So
formed a
my
very different
grizzly bear who had lost her cubs took in a baby wolf. So we're gonna look at more pictures upstairs, and we're also gonna talk about our service that we are leading next week. But I'll have pictures and stories after the service if anyone wants to see some more. And now we're gonna go on our journey of learning and discovery.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
The reading this morning is entitled Mother's Day Proclamation. It's written by Julia Ward Howe, who is, she was an incredible writer and author in the 1800s. She's most famous for her writing of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be of water or tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands will not come to us reeking of carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, the women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, and each bearing after her own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God.
If every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom, if every woman in the world dreamed a sweet dream of peace, if every woman in every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every man in the world had his mind set on freedom, if every brother stood with brother in a sweet dream of peace, if every man of every nation, young and old, each generation, held his hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every leader in the world had a vision of freedom, if every leader in the world shared a sweet dream of peace, if every leader of every nation worked for justice and liberation, holding hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. If every nation in the world set a true course for freedom, if every nation raised its children in a culture of peace, if all our sons and all our daughters reached in friendship across the waters, refusing to be enemies, there would be no more war. If every woman in the world had her mind set on freedom, if every woman in the world had a sweet dream of peace, if every woman of every nation, young and old, each generation, held her hands out in the name of love, there would be no more war. I'll get it out of the way.
On Monday, April 30th, 1976, they met in the Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for the first time. Las Madres, the mothers, grief-stricken by the disappearance of their children. They were just a handful then, but they met anyway, wearing something with white, the color of peace, and carrying photos of their children. You see, people, especially idealistic young people in Argentina, had been disappearing for a couple of years now. Their mothers had met each other over the last several months as they went from one police station to another, one government agency to another, looking for their missing children. There had been about 600 cases of people who were missing in 1974 and in 1975, but the numbers climbed drastically once the military government took power in 1976. After months of looking, after so many doors had been shut in their faces, they decided to go public and met in the plaza carrying pictures of their children. At first, they thought they had failed because no one paid attention to them. But they went back the next week, and the next, and the next. A woman named Azucena was the one who suggested that they meet in the square, and of course, she would also disappear before long. But why meet there in the plaza? This is something we still think about, one woman wrote, but hadn't thought of then. The more I talk about this with other people who know more than us, the more we realize why our association was created. It was because in other organizations we didn't feel the closeness of one another. There was always a desk between us and the organization. There was always the bureaucracy. But in the plaza, we were all equal. What happened to you? How was it for you? Each of us was in the same boat. Our children had been taken away from us. It happened to all of us. We had gone to the same places, and we were much closer to one another. Therefore, the plaza helped to form us. At first, they came and occupied the benches. They were despised. It was thought that their children were terrorists. When there were around 60 or 70 women in the plaza every Thursday afternoon, the police started to harass them. They beat the women with sticks and wouldn't let them sit on the park benches. So they marched. They marched around the square every Thursday afternoon, carrying photographs of their children. Los desaparecidos, the disappeared. They comforted and consoled one another, and they spoke to anyone who would listen about their missing children. They hung out at police stations and other government offices, watching for other mothers who were inquiring about their missing children. And their movement, the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, grew. The woman I quoted just a few minutes ago didn't leave her name, but she writes again, "Then one day they came and asked one of the mothers for her identity papers. She handed them over, afraid of what would happen. We naively believed that they did not know why we were there. The thought of them knowing our names was frightening. Another day it happened again. The third time it happened, they again asked one of us for her papers. She obliged and handed over 300 papers, one for each mother there. We were already 300. It was clear the police didn't know what to do with 300 sets of papers. This permitted us to remain more time in the plaza instead of the few minutes we were doing before that. We stayed until they returned every single paper, until they had identified us one by one. It was a very important action for us, pointing out how unified we had become. It was all of us or none of us. Eventually, the mothers, las madres, started to attract the attention of the international press as they marched in the plaza every Thursday afternoon in Buenos Aires. It took years, but their movement is credited with the downfall of that dreaded regime. A mother's power, a mother's courage, a mother's fierce love. Imagine it. Imagine that experience. People are disappearing, mostly younger people, your grown children and their friends. You know that many of them, if not all of them, are being brutalized and executed. You begin meeting together with other mothers, other women who are looking for their children, their loved ones. In the midst of your grief, you are comforted to find that you are not alone. You begin to attend the protest, and the dreaded police come and demand your papers. Now you are on the list, and everyone in power knows who you are. But you are together in this nightmare, and you give each other hope, strength, and courage. Besides, at this point, what have you left to lose? Perhaps for women, and those not in the circles of power, it's easier to take risks. Women certainly have a strong record of building coalitions and working together. Perhaps for the police, when confronted with the sight of hundreds of women marching in the square, one is confronted with the image of one's own mother or grandmother. How can you look someone representing your mother in the eye and arrest her? How can you think of arresting someone who might look like the woman who gave you life? What I do know is that there is a long history of women who stand against great odds for their families and communities to fight war and oppression. And it is that kind of courage and that kind of fierce love that I'd like us to honor and celebrate today. The power of mothers, the power of women, the power of parents of any gender. During the Black Spring in 2003, the Cuban government arrested and summarily tried and sentenced 75 human rights defenders, independent journalists, librarians, to terms of up to 28 years in prison. The Cuban government accused them of acts against the independence of the territorial integrity of the state, whatever the hell that means. The charges included terrorist activities, belonging to illegal organizations, and collaborating with foreign media. Under the leadership of Laura Polan, a Ladies in White group was formed 2 weeks after the arrests. Relatives of the prisoners began gathering on Sundays at St. Rita's Church in Havana to pray for their loved ones. After each Mass, they began a ritual procession from the church to a nearby park. The white clothing they wore symbolized peace, and it's reminiscent of the Madres de Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires from the first story I told. Each marcher wore a button with a photo of her jailed relative and the number of years to which they had been sentenced. The Cuban government, of course, had criticized the Ladies in White for being a subversive association of American-backed terrorists. How's that, mothers? On Palm Sunday in 2005, the pro-government Federation of Cuban Women sent 150 women to counter-protest the group. At times, sizable mobs have attacked the Ladies in White, yelling insults at them and assisting the police who were throwing them into police buses. However, since Cardinal Jaime Lucas Ortega y Almini intervened on their behalf in 2010, they were allowed to protest outside of his church. Roughly 70 members of the Ladies in White were detained on the weekend of March 16th and 17th, 2012, shortly before Pope Benedict's visit to Cuba. Many of them were arrested on their way to or from Mass. All 70 were released without charges a few days later. However, they were instructed by Cuba's secret police that they would no longer be allowed to protest. It's no coincidence, of course, that this took place shortly before Pope Benedict's visit, when he was scheduled to talk with Cuban leaders about human rights. I imagine that the government wanted to clamp down on any active protest so that everything would appear calm and harmonious during the Pope's visit. Some of us in this congregation have had conversations about the word love and its meaning. It's a word that's used in a lot of Unitarian Universalist circles and publications these days. It's the first word of the covenant that we say together on Sunday mornings. Love is the spirit of this church. It's also a word that is overused in our society. We use the same word, love, when we say that we love a particular kind of food, as well as when we describe the fierce love that women in these two stories feel for their loved ones. It doesn't add up sometimes, as some have argued, but love is at the center of the Universalist part of our UU tradition. It is our Universalist ancestors who highlighted and claimed the immense power of love and for them of parental love. For them, it was the love of God, who they saw as a father figure that always offered compassion, protection, and salvation to each and every one of us, his children. We often use other language to talk about the sacred today, but it is that same fierce and unrelenting love that calls us each and every day, asking of us to practice that kind of love and to be the vehicles for bringing that love into the world around us. Today, right now, as a matter of fact, mothers and their allies are marching in Boston. This is the 28th year of the Mother's Day Walk for Peace, sponsored once again by the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. That organization was founded by Clementina Cherry, Tina as everyone knows her, after her son Louis was murdered by gun violence. Gun violence is the way in our society that young people, especially young men, are disappearing. Being gunned down is a form of disappearing. Gangs and drugs are forms of disappearance as well. The conditions on our streets can be brutal. There is a sense of hopelessness. Gangs and drugs provide a way of life when many other avenues are inaccessible. Children can disappear long before they are dead. I'm very proud to say that I marched for the 10 years that I was the minister in Dorchester. I marched in the Mother's Day walk every year, rain or shine. The Peace Institute offers support for families who have lost someone to gun violence. They have developed curriculum materials to teach children and all of us about peaceful ways of resolving conflicts. They have brought together mothers of victims of gun violence with mothers of perpetrators, because when someone is murdered, both families experience the trauma. One mother loses a child to death, and another loses a child to a long prison sentence. If today's Mother's Day Walk for Peace is any example, it is the mothers, the women in our community who will take the lead in asking the hard questions, in naming what is wrong and what is missing, and in not letting us forget. It is often those who have nothing left to lose who find the courage and the power to act out of that fierce love that we can all feel and to which we are all called. Amen. Blessed be, and happy Mother's Day. Where's my, is it the hymn next? So we've chosen this hymn, number 8, in the gray hymnal, to highlight another way that fierce love is kind of and has been expressed in the world. Norbert Chapek, who wrote this hymn, was a Unitarian minister who had a huge congregation in Czechoslovakia. When the Nazis came through, he helped to harbor Jews and to speak out against the atrocities that were happening. And he too was arrested and died in a concentration camp. So we invite you to rise in body or in spirit and sing his words, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit.
Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? Mid the skies, all in the forest, holds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean.
Your financial gifts are so important to the work and ministry of this church, and we will gratefully receive those offerings now. Please rise. The words to the doxology are printed in your order of service.
From heaven dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land by every tongue.
So we are also happy to have you here with us today. And part of the strength of the connection of this community is that we share those milestone moments, those times of joy and sorrow that have touched our lives and our hearts since the last time that we met. And so I am lighting the first candle this morning. Well, I'm lighting a candle for all of the mothers who are grieving losses right now with so much conflict and war happening throughout the world and on our streets. It's just the grief and sadness is incredible, I'm sure. And I'll light a final candle for all that we hold in our hearts today, the joys and the sorrows and everything in between. Also in that final candle for those who are traveling over the next couple of weeks, that we have some folks in the congregation going on long trips, and may you all be safe in your journeys and come back to us with great stories. Let us pray. Spirit of the fierce goddess that lives in all of us, we call upon your presence in today's world where so much is where so much violence is present, where so much misunderstanding, lack of empathy, or compassion. We want to embody. We want that to be the kind of love we speak of and think of when we say that word. We want to be like the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo who were pictured on your order of service cover in the late 1970s, protesting for their missing children. We want to have the courage that that fierce love brings over these next couple of years, which will be fraught. We want to remember that fierce love can be protective and demanding, but is also compassionate and kind and gentle. And we want to celebrate all the women and men, the people around us who embody that and help us to learn how to live that in our own lives. Let us pause for a moment of personal prayer and reflection. One verse, just sung once. Got it. Our song of inspiration today is number 409 in the Gray Hymnal. Sleep, My Child. Emily will play it through once and then we'll just sing one verse. Please, you can remain seated. all through the night and the days, we hold each other and our families and friends in love, in support, in compassion, in courage. We celebrate those parents, mothers, and fathers who offer that kind of fierce love and protection, and anyone in our families from whom we receive that. Sometimes it's not a parent. Sometimes, it's another family member. Sometimes it's a teacher. But hopefully for all of us, there has been someone or some people who have helped us to live into a sense of love and compassion. So let us honor all those folks today and carry them in our hearts as we go forth. Amen. Blessed be.